Are GLP-1 here to stay? I want to start with that because I believe GLP-1 are here to stay when there is a medical condition associated with it, which we now know to be diabetes. And we'll put that as an envelope. Are they here to stay for, quote, weight loss? That I'm not sure. Because statistically right now, it's very new that weight loss have been, GLP-1 have been generalized population for weight loss. That's fairly new. And population are starting to see the side effect and people are not liking it.
Welcome. Welcome. We are so thrilled, Stephanie, to have you with us today. We are honored to have Stephanie Dodier with us. She is a non-diet nutritionist, educator, and feminist business leader, challenging everything that we've been taught about food, health, and coaching. She helps health professionals confidently coach food and body without co-opting diet culture. Over the last 8 years as a non-diet nutritionist, certified intuitive eating counselor, and cognitive behaviors coach, she has worked with over 1,000 women in 92 countries break free from diet culture. She's been hosting It's Beyond the Food podcast for the last 7 years with over 1.3 million downloads and has built 2 multiple six-figure coaching non-diet businesses over the last 8 years. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me, Jenny and Nina.
Well, I just want to know why you've been so lazy. My God, only that much business over 7 years? I mean, I don't know.
I know. What is it?
Slacker.
I know.
Well, the thing that we love to ask our guests to start with is, where did your passion come from for this? How did you enter this field and obviously make a very, very big dent in it?
My personal journey. So to me, this is my second career. I was telling Nina earlier, I had a corporate career, and through that corporate career, it was a pursuit of proving my worth into the world. And it was never enough, to the point where I collapsed, my health collapsed. And in my path of healing, the world of non-diet health at every size came into my world, and it became my healing, the key to my healing, and the work of giving back and sharing into the world began. And I've been in this for, it's going to be 10 years this year, that I've reoriented my life, healed myself, and now this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. This is my way of contributing back.
And thank goodness for that.
Thank you.
When you talk about healing yourself, how do you think about that? How do you frame that for yourself?
For me, it was about, and I like the title of the podcast, about peace, right? Peace and finding the peace in my life, and not just the peace in the terms of how others think of peace, but a peace that is felt in my body.
Embodied peace.
Yeah, I can walk into my life and have an embodied sense of peace. Now, I couldn't have described that to you 12 years ago, but when I think about healing today, it's an embodied sense of peace that comes from not only healing the relationship to food, but healing the relationship to the body, the way that I think, and the way that I make choices in life.
Now, we all come across clients and patients that we work with who are living in the world we live in, which wants it to be thin. Period. End of story. Thin is best. There's nothing else to have in this life except thinness and money, I suppose, right? How do you start to manage that conversation with the clients that you work with, but also the treaters that you're also teaching how to do this? Because we live in a world now which, is very full of GLP-1s, and we can certainly get into that a little bit later. But we've always lived in diet culture, and it seems that women in particular, but all people, but mostly women, are really under the pressure all the time to look a certain way, to feel a certain way, that it is associated with aging, which somehow is thought to be a bad thing. if you're in a larger body. And so I'm just wondering, how do you start to navigate those conversations?
One question that I ask everyone that I come in contact to is, if we're at the stage where we still want to lose weight, the question is why? I want to take you on the journey of why you want to be thin, and I want to explore it with you so you can make a consensual choice. Because we have agency, everybody, no matter where you are, you have the agency, the autonomy of make what you want with your body and your life. But I want you to make it from an informed place and understanding your true motivator. So for me, as a person who has a feminist lens on coaching, it's like, do you understand that your desire to be thin comes from patriarchy, comes from diet culture? Do you understand what it is? Right? And you understand that if you do that, here's what is likely to happen. Like, we explore the why and the how, and then you can make a quality decision based on the true understanding as to why you want to be thin or lose weight.
That was on the same train as you were, Jenny. Body autonomy is something that we talk about so much. And I love the way you weave in seamlessly how body autonomy and consensual experience of your choice, like I am saying yes to what I'm choosing, goes hand in hand with body autonomy.
Well, yes. And, you know, when I talk about body autonomy with other people, they say, well, do I really have the autonomy I think I do? Because after all, things happen to my body that I have no say in the matter, like, perimenopause, menopause, things like that. Or maybe I live in a world where I don't get to make a lot of the choices about my body, depending on, lots of different circumstances. But in the discussion of body autonomy, this is just about making clear decisions that aren't based on what you think everybody else wants and everybody else thinks you should be. Does that resonate?
Yeah. And as you were speaking, the word control came in.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And understanding that often people have of autonomy means control. And to me, I see it as two different things. The autonomy of making choices within the sphere of what you actually can control. So, for example, perimenopause is not something right now in today's world that we can control, right? We don't have the science, the intelligence, and that we can't control that. So that is not something that you have the autonomy to decide yes or no. That is something we need to work through acceptance of what is so you can make the best experience. So in the sphere of what you can control, what is your autonomy and how can you make consensual choice, as Nina said, within the sphere of what you can actually control. That's how I see it to me.
Right. But it's so interesting is to hearing you talk about perimenopause, right? It's something that happens. But right now, the menopause industry, this is really ticking me off right now because it's the new big business, right? So first it was just let's get thin, then let's not age, and now it's let's not go through menopause at all. So now the whole industry is being positioned as you do have control. And if you just do it right, if you just get your hormones just this way, and this way, you won't change one little bit. Your brain will stay completely online. Nothing will change. Your focus will be just perfect. Your weight won't change at all. And bonus points, you won't age. So you get to not only buy into the menopause industry, you get to buy into the anti-aging industry. Clearly, I'm on a rant on this, but it makes me really, really angry.
I can sense your anger,
Yes,
Nina.
me too.
Thank you very
Hard to
much
miss.
from the
Promise.
validation. I appreciate that.
And I think this is where I'll come back to why and understanding. So I have an intersectional lens on coaching. So for me, and that's where feminism binds with coaching. Why is it that you don't want to age? Again, we're going to ask this question. I'm going to go down the path of the system of your identity as to why you think that it's a bad thing. And then do you want to continue to think it's a bad thing? Because at the end of the day, we also need to talk about capitalism, right?
Yes.
What you just expressed, Nina, is how profit, money, capitalism comes in and takes a very natural change of life and makes it a problem and then sells you a product for it, just like it did with
Mm-hmm.
our body,
Yeah.
right? It made our body a problem and sold us all kinds of product. And by the way, we never got there, remember? This is why when the conversation with women that are going through that, I'm like, you did the dual diet thing for 25 years. In my case, 25 years.
How's it going?
Never got there. Do you think you're going to get there with perimenopause and menopause? No. And this is how then we need to talk about acceptance and what is acceptance and helping people through the process of acceptance of what you cannot control, like perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah. But I think there's something in there that really, like, as you're talking, I'm like, selling the promise, right? That's what we're constantly being sold, right? Here's the promise. Here's the, if you just, when you said, did you get there yet? Oh no, but I must be doing it wrong because I didn't get there. Versus, how is it that you're selling me that I'm the problem and then selling me the promise?
Just prior to our three of us coming together today, and it's part of why I was delayed a bit, I was working with a client who, God bless her, is 90. And imagine that at 90, right?
Yeah.
She's got very, 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 very long list of lovely accomplishments and family and all of those things, is still in the battle. Imagine,
Yep.
still in the battle, knows enough that she would like not to be in the battle. That's why we were meeting. But imagine that, if our fantasy is that we just shake it off at a certain age, that, well, it's a certain age we just realize, well, okay, we're just going to live our lives for ourselves. Well, not necessarily, because of all the pressures that are still on us as women and as humans. I'm so interested to know, Stephanie, you chose to train others, right? And so I'm wondering, you know, how is it received? I mean, obviously, I'm hoping people who seek out your training already know there's something they don't know they don't know, so this makes it a little easier. But I'm wondering, is there a lot that has to sort of be shaken off? Is there a lot in their previous training that is all very well intended, we hope, but may not, really take on this idea of body autonomy, but also health at every size?
I'll say one word, lived experience.
Mhm.
So people, the professional of any kind of background that come to work with me is because they've had the encounter of weight stigma, diet culture, wellness culture, either through patients, clients, but I want to say 90%, 9 out of 10 is through their own life. So they got into the field of, I'll take dietetic for an example, because of their desire to control their body. They got into the field because of their own disordered eating behavior. They progress in their field and then they realize like they never get quote there. And then the big piece for people is they encounter patients or clients that have the same pattern as them. They're like, oh my God, like this is not just me. And there has to be something else. So people come to me to get professional training, but it's really to do their work within this
Mhm.
container for professional. And then they take their skills and apply it with their clients. So, and I'll just say this as a story when I started to train others, it's totally by accident. I was holding a cohort at the time, my program was called Beyond the Food Academy. And I was working with people for like 4 months. And on the call, I had 12 people in front of me. And somebody said, I'm a dietitian. I'm like, oh, I did not know that even after 4 months. And then the other one raised her hand, I'm a therapist. And the other one said, I'm a fitness professional. And then people started raising their hand. And I realized that 9 out of 12 people in front of me were all professional. And then we ended that cohort and all of them emailed me individually and said, like, would you like supervise me and help me implement this? And it just bloomed from there. And now I work with people that have the lived experience and want to do their healing and bring that into their practice.
It brings me to a different question, but related, which is as people, regular people out in the world, are going to their healthcare providers and they come to somebody who doesn't have the education that you're offering to people, what would you say to them? how to approach the person that says, hop on the scale, or, you're just carrying a little weight, or here's the chart, or, you want that surgery? You got to lose 30 pounds first, right? All these things that we've heard all of our clients say. How do you recommend people navigate a healthcare system that is so size biased?
That's a beautiful question. So, the first thing we need to be clear on is the person asking this question is somebody that has begun their work, either through therapy, through nutrition. They understand that there's another way. So, but their team, I call it their medical team, is not on the same journey as them. So, my go to coaching sentence for those clients is I want you to ask your provider to give you a treatment plan that would be the same for a person in a regular BMI or a thin body. That's like the easiest entry conversation
Yes.
is give me the same treatment plan as a person in the normal, whatever BMI that doesn't exist, but speak the language of that provider, right? The language clearly that provider's BMI. So give me the same treatment plan as somebody in a normal BMI. And that usually shocks the provider because the provider's never thought about it this way. And you say, like, if they're silent, to say, I understand that this may be different, but I want you to imagine I'm a normal BMI and I have diabetes. What would you tell me to do? And I want to have this treatment plan. That's my answer.
And that particularly, it's a brilliant answer. It particularly works well in orthopedic settings, you can imagine. It throws them completely off balance because, you know, who hasn't been told, well, this is a matter of physics. If you would just be, in a small way, there'd be less pressure and gravity on your knee. And who doesn't buy that? Except it's just not true. That's actually just not true. And so I'm wondering also, what are you finding even within our industry? Now, let me define what I mean by our industry, right? Because it's far and wide, right? Let's start by saying that we hope everyone's in this business because they really mean well. No one ever wants to do harm. We want to support and help, right? And yet there's this area that we don't even know we don't know, right? So, what are you finding among particularly therapists, dietitians, physicians, whoever seems to come down your path, that they know enough to be seeking out your coaching, but yet they're still pretty tied to their ways of doing things, including weigh ins and such things? Yeah.
One word again on this answer, wellness culture. So here's what I see in provider. Even in their training, I know dietetic for case, we're trained in weight loss and health. And so we're like, okay, so it's not about the weight, but it must be about gentle nutrition. It must be about what they eat. So provider will transition from like, no, 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 I don't do diet culture anymore. I don't talk about weight. I don't weigh in people. And then they jump into wellness culture and accentuating the power of food. And then they get trapped into this. And that's usually where I pick up people. They've left diet culture already, but they hopped into the next thing instead of solving the real issue. So wellness culture is the next thing. So if it's not about the weight, it must be about health and optimum health. And that's when the whole conversation about social determinant of health and so forth comes in.
You can imagine someone's listening to us today, we hope at least a few, and saying to themselves, well, what's wrong with wellness? I mean, shouldn't we all want to be well? Yes, but that's not what you mean. Can you say more about what you mean when you say wellness culture?
Wellness culture is an industry that assign worth based on your health status or your effort that you deploy in order to be as healthier as you can. And in the same way that diet culture says there's one type of body, the thin body, it does the same thing with health. It says it doesn't have health diversity. Everybody is capable to be optimally healthy. So body diversity and health diversity actually exist, and people are born with different capacity of being healthy, whatever that means. And it's true that some people are not capable to be as optimally healthy. And that's okay because we have health diversity, just like we have body diversity.
So I just want a yellow highlighter what you just said, because it's so important for people to hear it, right? We know there is diversity in people's skin color. We know there's diversity in people's cultural background. We also know there's diversity in people's body size, and there is diversity in people's health, in their capacity to feel vital and able-bodied in this universe. And it's so important because that wellness culture has such a push towards, if you just tried a little harder, you too, even though you feel exhausted and might have a chronic disease, no, you too can just work harder and you will be healthy. Again, the air quotes, right? And the pressure in that is so intense, and especially for professionals who are in the field, right? If I just hustle, then I'll be like the A student. And if I'm the A student, then people will come to me and want to learn from me, versus I'm a human being, being in a human body, having a human experience, and helping other humans navigate actually being human.
At the end of the day, I think so much of this really is a cover for anti-aging. I think, as we
For dying.
yes, but that's a truth, isn't it? It is the only thing that all human beings have in common, and it's the only thing no one ever talks about, I think because we're sort of wired not to even think about it, because if we thought about it all the time, we'd enter a state of entropy. But it's interesting that anti-aging becomes like, well, old is bad, fat is bad, all of that is bad. Okay, what happened to just being yourself? It leads me into a question for you, Stephanie, about GLP-1s. For those of us, that are listening, I'm sure you know that a GLP-1 is, the Ozempics of the world and all of the others. My take on this, and I'm wondering what you think, is that for better or for worse, they're here to stay. And they've been here. They had a different purpose, which was to help treat pre-diabetic and diabetic situations. And now, it was discovered, oh, look what happens when you take them. Oh, look at that. There's weight loss. Okay. When I say they're here to stay, I don't mean that I want them to be here to stay. What I'm saying is that people get the choice of doing whatever it is they want to do. But what I'm really, really have struggling with is how prolifically they are now in our culture. For there to have been Super Bowl commercials about GLP-1s, that's a moment in time, because that's the biggest reach there is in an entire year. And I'm just wondering what your experience is, what you're finding among clients and clinicians, and how they're navigating the world of GLP-1s.
Are GLP-1 here to stay? I want to start with that because I believe GLP-1 are here to stay when there is a medical condition associated with it, which we now know to be diabetes. And we'll put that as an envelope. Are they here to stay for, quote, weight loss? That I'm not sure. Because statistically right now, it's very new that weight loss have been, GLP-1 have been generalized population for weight loss. That's fairly new. And population are starting to see the side effect and people are not liking it. So there's an article in the New York Times, I think it was a month ago, that said that people who have tried it are getting off of it. And now what's happening is the new people are trying it again and they're stopping it because it doesn't work. They're starting to regain weight. They have symptoms. I'm not sure they're going to here to stay from a weight loss perspective because at some point everybody would have gone on them and they will get off of them. So I'm challenging that.
Right.
I'm not sure that that's true. Now, when it comes to professional, it becomes a personal choice of the practitioner. And in some case, licensing issue. In some cases, if you're a dietitian, for example, in a hospital, you don't have a choice of who you're working with and how. So the approach may be different. So for practitioners who do have a choice, my question or my coaching for them is, what is it that you want to do? Do you want to support people that are consciously deciding, if we'll come back to the beginning of the podcast, right? We've gone with them. We've done the whole like exploration of why you want to lose weight, why you want to be on GLP-1. There's great tools, by the way, to do that. I don't know if you shared with your listener the informed consent for GLP-1 from Weight Inclusive Practitioner.
No, we have not. I've seen it, but we haven't talked about it yet. Please. Yeah.
So I'll email you the link, Nina, for you to share. It's a free tool that Weight Inclusive health practitioner have created to help general population make an informed decision for GLP-1. So it shows the other side of what can happen. And if you've gone through that with your patient and the patient says, I want to do it, then you have to decide, will I facilitate that personally or not? So it becomes, again, a reflective point and a personal choice if you're going to facilitate GLP-1 in your practice.
Well, that's what we're navigating now, aren't we? Right? Because again, if we're saying that one has body autonomy and you can really clarify the place you're coming from, and you say, you know what, I would like to try this. I will just say in my practice that I'm not prepared to say to someone, oh, well, you want to be on that? I'm not your gal, because I want to help them through this process. I think what you say about the information we don't have yet is very important. I think people don't realize that to be on them, if that's your choice, is forever. Because if you come off of them, despite all the changes you think you've made, despite everything that you think you've built now around it, unfortunately, you will regain the weight. And again, if that's something you care about, well, then you're sort of stuck. So I think it's something we're all going to be dealing with a lot.
But there's also another piece that I'm seeing, because I'm with you, Jenny. If someone comes and it's a client of mine, just as though if they had said, you know what, I'm really freaking out and I'm watching how I'm getting controlling and suddenly I'm counting calories, I'm going to help them navigate that too. So then they're like, I'm freaking out. Oh my gosh, now I'm reverting back to this feeling like all will be well in the world. If I get to be in a small body, I'm going to try the GLP-1s. And there's this moment in the beginning where there's like this like honeymoon moment where they're like, oh, this is the best. And then they've created this whole new world of obsessive thinking, right? Can I poop? Am I losing my hair? Am I doing this right? Am I getting enough protein? Am I losing muscle mass? And I'm hearing like they were in this one conversation that they labeled food noise, and they labeled that bad, and that they wanted to get away with it. And now I'm just hearing a whole other conversation that is just as loud but different, and just as disabling to their sense of body autonomy and a sense of owning their own experience from that place of body peace. And it breaks my heart. It really does, because I feel like our culture once again has done a bait and switch.
Yeah. And for me, I'll just layer in one thing. When we work with people who have a history of food control and body control, one area that I think is not often focused on is what is known as mindset or thought work or cognitive behavioral coaching. We need to bring that into the conversation. So yeah, we need to talk about food. Yes, we need to talk about body image, but we need to do it from a place where we're giving tools to people to change the food noise or look at their thoughts and being able to see them, change them, alter them, instead of having to take a GLP-1 to then like numb that noise, but actually give them tool to change their thought in their whole life. So that was a parenthesis for me.
Stephanie, your social media presence is quite extraordinary. What are people responding to? What are you hearing from those who interact with you? What do they want? They're obviously very attracted to what you're posting and saying, and we should tell everybody to really visit you on all forms of social media. But what are you finding is the zeitgeist? What are folks talking about?
People want certainty. So we're recording this in the beginning of 2026, and we're taking already the food noise and the body noise, and then we are layering the political context very specifically to America, but I'm seeing it in Europe and I'm seeing it to a certain degree in Australia. And the one thing people want is certainty. They want the answer. Like they want to feel safe in their body with food and in the whole world. There's a lot of uncertainty. So, this ability to create safety and certainty in their life. I would say, like right now, this is what we're talking about in the beginning of 2026 on social media.
I'm hearing you say two things. I want to clarify. One is they may perceive that they're living in a world that feels unsafe, so let me at least try to get my safety in an area that I have a say about. I think that's what you're saying. And the other thing I'm hearing is, can I just get this right? Can I finally just get this right, not have to think about it all the time? And if only, if only. I mean, is that what you're
Yeah.
finding? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's incredible
I would
that
say
you.
that's a beautiful
Yeah.
way of putting
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, there's so much compassion, right, in what you're saying, like, if only, but so much compassion in understanding that, of course, if the world is unstable, we're looking for any sense of control. And then where does the world of diet culture, menopause business, anti aging industry say we have control? Just control your body and you're set. Right. So I want to, put that layer of compassion around all of it because it lets us soften and really see, oh, I'm coming back to a default place of instead, oh, let me try to control myself instead of being angry, instead of taking action outside of me, I can turn against myself. And that feels bad, but it feels familiar,
Yes.
painful.
And wanting that right answer, I'll go to what Jenny said, wanting the right answer is I want the
Mhm.
right answer and I want it. I'm going to take my AirPod here, but I want
Mhm.
it like a one pill approach, like show me the one way. And I think that's why GLP-1 right now, like the intersection of the timing and the political issues, like, oh my God, just an injection and everything will be good. Like it fits exactly what people want.
And now it'll actually be in pill form too, which sort of scares me a little, I have to say. 'Cause I
Yeah.
think it's easier to abuse. I did wanna ask you one other thing too, which is, are you finding that there's a proliferation now of bariatric surgery? Are you seeing a lot of that? Are you seeing it wax and wane? I mean, my experience is that there was a period of time when it was the thing to do. I find that always extraordinary that surgery is considered just like, like a tune-up. And then I think in my experience, it sort of waned for a bit because GLP-1s hit the scene. But I'm now seeing sort of, strangely, an uptick in surgery again, either because that's the thing that get paid for by insurance where the GLP-1s didn't, so there's a financial consideration, or it feels like just a one-stop, fix. Are you finding this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am not seeing the same trend as you. In fact, I see less bariatric surgery conversation and a lot more GLP-1. And I have a colleague of mine, Bree Campos, Body Image with Bree. She works with a lot of bariatric surgery, and what she's seeing is the number one offer from obesity doctor is GLP-1 before bariatric surgery, which used to be the other way
The
around.
opposite. Mhm.
So that's what I'm saying. But what I'll say to this is when people find out that GLP-1 doesn't work for them, there may be those same people who do not work with us. They're going to go back to the surgery they were avoiding doing because that's the only other solution.
Yeah. Yeah. So, from this place, right, since we all are agreeing that weight loss isn't the goal to go with, right? What are the more supportive goals? Let's talk about that. Let's move towards like what actually works.
For me, I'll say two things. So, redefining health would be one thing. And for me, the answer is well being instead of health. So, broadening the lands of what it means to be healthy. So, for me, it's the four body, right? Mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, and not one more important than the other. It's almost like if you want a definitive 25, 25, 25, like you need to have well-being. You need to take care. You need to take action in each part of what constitutes your well-being. That would be one thing. And then two, I'll come back to the shadow area that I don't hear enough in this field, which is mindset. The ability to work with your brain and the thoughts that it produce and challenging your belief system and challenging socialization, challenging like diet culture so that you can have permanent behavior change.
Are you using mindset? I think it's in a very specific way. Are you using it separate from just learning a set of new skills and behaviors? Because that's part of it.
Integrated
Right.
approach.
Okay.
So for me, it's I know you're a therapist, so you may be familiar, cognitive behavioral coaching. So it's a less, I don't want to say intense, but less, we don't go in the past. So we stay in the present and the future moment. So we took CBT and bring it into a coaching approach. And then we help people look at their current thoughts towards their goal and how we can change that, and then identifying the belief that causes these thoughts and changing the belief so that we can generate new thought constantly.
When I hear that, I hear two different kinds of beliefs that could be possible, right? One could be, well, I believe if I eat less, then I will just be thinner. Okay, there's that, right? Very procedural, very physical, very,
Yeah.
important, but that's okay. But there's something else too. If I believe that I am supposed to look a certain way, that's the thought that has to be shaken. That's the mindset that must
Yeah.
make some shift, I imagine.
Then we can talk about socialization. So if we want to go a little bit deeper in this conversation, understanding where your belief come from, right? Is it your socialization, your conditioning, your cultural background, your race, your gender, your sexual orientation, right? All the various identity we can have and where we picked up that belief. And then once we can narrow it down, like women needs to be thin, then we've identified, then you say, do you want to continue to believe that? So we throw back the autonomy to say, now that we know where this is coming from, you have the autonomy and the authority to no longer believe that. And then let me show you how to change your belief.
So great. I feel like our conversation has gone so many wonderful places. And Stephanie, I want to make the space for you. Is there something else you want to say? Is there anything else you want to share before we share? And would you share how people can find you and connect with you?
If I can share one more thing is compassion. The one thing we talked about, acceptance, mindset, all of that, but the relationship that we have to ourselves in the journey of healing, right? And having the approach of what I call having your own back and like
I love that.
going through it with like loving yourself through the process and accepting yourself. That would be my one thing I want to add. And where you can find me. So we mentioned social media. Steph Dodier and my podcast, Beyond the Food, it's going to be 9.5 years right now that we're online. So you can find me there. And that's about it. Podcasts and social media, that's your entry point.
Well, we're going to put your social media into the notes, but for those of us who listen to podcasts while we're driving and may not remember to look at the notes, what's your Instagram handle?
Steph Dodier, STEPHDODIER. And if you Google Beyond the Food, I own this tagline. You'll find me somewhere, like just Beyond the Food on Google, and somehow, some way, I'm going to appear there.
Will we know it's you? We'll know it's you.
Oh yeah, there's no. I've actually had to sue somebody who wanted to use my tagline because I Googled myself one day. I'm like, saw this person who wanted to use my tagline. I'm like, no, 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 no. So now if you Google Beyond the Food, it's me.
They should have known better not to mess with you. Stephanie, it has been an utter delight to have you with us. We hope you'll come back, and thank you for all the work that you're doing, not only with clients, but with our industry. And it's just a privilege to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.